Once again, welcome. Breakfast Extra here for a Saturday installment. And our big story today, where we dive into the topics that matter most. And today we are joined in a global celebration of World Television Day. Who would we be not to celebrate? But of course, a day to recognize the profound impact of television on communication, culture, and society. Since its inception, TV has shaped how we share stories, how we report news, and entertain, and also educate millions worldwide. But in an era of streaming and on-demand content, how does television remain relevant, and what does the future hold for this enduring medium? Well, I and Judith today are going to be speaking with very interesting guests here. But first, I wanted to talk to Judith regarding, well, we have a small thing put together that we're going to be telling.
Oh, yes, we did.
Unfortunately, you and I weren't in it, so we might as well tell ours now. What was your foray into TV like?
Oh, I manifested it.
Manifested?
My foray into television started I think a decade ago, thereabout, even more than a decade. No, it's...
It's
a long time. It's almost 13 years, but it was for a very long time that I joined television, and it was Cross River State Broadcasting Corporation and their Paradise Television at the time. And I started off as a reporter. I was going on, I was sending out on assignments, and there we go. I also produced and then went on television.
Well, we did a little, nosy about inside of the studio, or the newsroom, to be specific. You'll find a couple of very familiar faces. Let's take this short package on, well, what it was like for some of our colleagues here at New Central.
I studied sociology in school, and after school, I honestly wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then at some point, funny enough, I didn't have a job, and one of my relatives remembered that I used to have a passion for, presenting, broadcasting generally. And so she was one who paid for my broadcast training, back then, many years ago. I had the training, and then I remembered it kind of sparked up that fire in me all over again. And then I retraced my steps back to broadcasting and journalism.
Nigeria happened. Yeah, so I studied industrial chemistry. I had no lineage or any sort of, tilting towards journalism at all. Yes, before now, I've been pushed or spoken to about, oh, you have a voice with radio, you have a voice with television. I do MC work even before now, before I came into journalism, but not as a journalist officially.
From the days of black and white television to color television, to flat screen plasma TVs, but that's just the physical aspect. Content-wise, TV has definitely changed. People have moved from mainstream media to social media to digital media, basically. So TV is not just what you have in your living room or in your office. TV now goes around with you.
For someone who is always in front of the television, your actions are usually judged by... your actions are usually streamlined, if I can put it that way. There are things you now have to do. There are things you can't do based on the integrity of your work and based on what you say and how you look, because how you look is also the way you'll be addressed. I do remember someone seeing me somewhere and was asking, the guy that, the presenter that does so and so, and it didn't catch me in a very good heart. It's not so bad, yeah. Anyway, it didn't catch me in a very good heart, and I had to just, question myself.
Venturing into television, for me, started way back as a little girl, watching the news with my dad. And I saw women, young women reading the news, and I just knew I could do this. As cliche as it sounds, it laid the foundation for my career. And then, as I grew older, I watched international television stations like the likes of BBC and CNN, and all I could just see was them reporting Africa from, that dark place. And I'm like, there's so much, from Africa, there's so much beautiful things, and I feel like the only place, or for me at that time, the only place I could change the narrative was just to join the television, team. And I thought, okay, you know what, I got a role on TV, and then with my little quota from my report, newsreading and all of that, I could, just change some of these narratives.
Talent and skill alone will not do it. I think if you really want to be good in the industry, you should get some kind of professionalism, some kind of professional training, either in university, higher institutions, or some kind of academy that can at least set you onto the right path. And then when you add whatever skill you have onto that, definitely you will be good quality, good material for TV industry.
So there was this project that I did on Parkinson's disease. I remember when I went for It was supposed to be just be a walk for Parkinson's, raising awareness for Parkinson's at the time. I didn't even know what Parkinson's was anyways before we went for the walk. And I got there, I saw the symptoms of Parkinson's, if I can put it that way, very shaky hands, mobility. I spoke with some of the caregivers there, and I felt, you know what, I just want to do this differently. And I saw a lady at the time, she's had Parkinson's for 11 years. In fact, her husband got married to her knowing she had Parkinson's. She was younger at the time. And I asked her what was the biggest thing she would have loved to do. She said she would have loved to play a piano. And she has never played a piano in her hands. Her hands are very shaky, so she can't play the piano. And that was where the concept of the story came out from. And they had a grand piano in that place. I just said, you know what, sit in front of a piano and let me see, attempt to play it. And that was the beginning of the story for me. It was very interesting stuff.
I've been able to break into different places. I'm proud of the fact that I have been able to meet so many people. I look at my phone sometimes, I look at the contacts I have, and I'm wowed at the people I can easily reach out to on speed dial. I'm proud of the things I've been able to achieve. I'm proud of the kind of reports that I have done, the kind of places where my name has been mentioned, the kind of conversations I've been able to have. And generally, I'm proud of the kind of reports, the kind of stories that have my name on them. Of course, there's still more work to be done in the future. I'm also proud of the people I've been able to work with, the teams that I've worked with, and how far I've grown. Again, I didn't study journalism professionally. I took a course along the line somewhere, and from there, it's been upward all the way up until now.
Aside being thriving to be professional in work, in terms of dishing out facts and authentic storytelling, I would want to be remembered for someone who really, really delved into solution journalism. I want to be that reporter that because of her or because of her report, Makoko, a place like Makoko was, developed or changed, or, someone that because of her, the rate of out-of-school children has just reduced. And for me, I think that would go a long way other than the awards and accolades that I may, earn on this journey.
I think I would be a symbol of anything you put your mind to, you can do. For someone who didn't come from a basics or from the background knowledge of journalism, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying something you can run into and just start performing. There are courses about to run, there are professional courses about to do, there are trainings about to undergo in-house, professionally and everywhere just to get to where I am. But one of the biggest point for me is learning, and always wanting to give your best.
So, funny story. Growing up, my dad was a journalist himself, and I saw his passion in the job and the way he was able to use his voice to fight for the less privileged. So I would say in a nutshell, that was where my desire to become a journalist started from. I watched my father do it all his life, and I couldn't think of any other thing that I would rather do.
1998, when I walked up to the MD of a TV channel in Kaduna State, and I told him I wanted to be the Oprah Winfrey of our time. And I introduced to him Young Perspective. And at the time, Oprah Winfrey show was on the TV in his office, and he said, "Do you know what you're talking about?" And he pointed at his TV. He said, "That's the Oprah Winfrey Show." And I said, "That's the show I want to do." In 1998, I became the youngest TV presenter in the whole of the North.
And Marsha is one of our very own treasured reporters there. Well, our reporters there from Benada Kedede to Igbalani Omoni to Omolola Ololade, as well as Bettina Whaley, there we go. All of them, they're just sharing their experience on their foray into television, and quite moments to be proud of, and just very explorative, I would say. But hey, let's explore even further this fascinating topic about television. And to do that, we have two distinguished guests on to begin with. We have Mr. Tokunbo Ojekunle. He's a veteran broadcaster whose voice and face have graced our screens and airwaves for decades. We also have Mr. Adejumo Ismail. He's the chairman of the Radio, Television, Theatre and Arts Workers Union of Nigeria, Lagos State Council. Gentlemen, it's our honor and pleasure to have both of you join us today on the show. And Happy World Television Day.
Yes, we did that.
To celebrate.
We do need that.
Oh, goodness. Let me start with you, Mr. Ojekunle. And I must say that television is a very powerful medium for decades. I mean, but radio still has the largest platform in terms of audience, right?
It does.
Still the oldest and traditional form of media. But television also has a very powerful tool. And we remember that moment in the 70s where we made that switch, you know, from black and white to colored. But most importantly, what has been, you know, you are a veteran, television and radio. Tell us your journey. Let's start there.
The journey for me started with radio, and after a while, a short while, I realized that well, there was something a little bit crazy we used to do. You sit down facing the mirror, and you imagine yourself reading the script or holding a conversation. So for me, it's been a silly thing in the small room. But I didn't know I was actually working for a greater step, because after a while, and by the way, I must give credit to Ime James. Ime James was a burden producer at NTA at that time, NTA Channel 10 and Channel 5. So he came to me one day and said, there's a program I'm thinking about, and I think you fit in with Biola Ogunduile, now Biola Williams, and we started a program called Adam and Eve.
There you go.
There we go.
And Adam and Eve was really, really, really strong. I ran into problems then, still holding a radio job and still doing the TV thing, and somehow it played out. So it was a very great experience for me, and yeah, it was a dream thing. And just as one of your, that's a particularly very good report though, very incisive. Somebody said, mentioned Oprah Winfrey. And I really looked at that too when I was, flattened out. And I realized that once you have an icon in your mind, it could work for you.
Right.
Okay? So somehow it worked for me. And a lot more came after that.
Who was your hero? Yeah. Like, who was the person that was...
Straight up Cyril Stober.
Oh,
sorry. Let me go back. This gentleman, Tokunbo Ojekunle. Since he's in the studio here. Cyril Stober.
Cyril Stober, Eugenia Abu were the two persons, and then
Eugenia.
Fumi
Odubekun.
and the other Fumi, Channel 10, with her morning show. Every time I watched that Yonda, because I didn't want to butcher her name, every single time I watched that, I looked at her and I said, she's an icon. Her voice, she was distinct in how she approached for things. She was just brilliant, I would say, you know.
Mr. Ismail, you are the chairman, Radio, TV, and Theatre for Nigerian Union of Workers. Am I correct? Now, let's ask Lagos chapter. Now, let's talk about the union itself. What kind of people make up this group of people when it comes to Lagos, as you've seen it in your experience?
Thank you very much. RATAO, meaning Radio, Television, Theatre and Art Workers Union of Nigeria, is one of the oldest union in the broadcast media sector. And as much as it remains so relevant alongside the sister union, Nigerian Union of Journalists, we have been trying to shape the industry in a manner that those who represent, who are the, on the air personality, are core professionals, are people who are the requisite skills and the knowledge of shaping the world through different perspectives. And the union is so important in the sense that we look deeply into the welfare of workers in that sector to ensure that they are being catered for, and their remuneration, their allowances, their dress code, all that matters that give a journalist or a broadcaster, the status that they deserve is well maintained. And this we have been pushing all along with our sister union, Nigerian Union of Journalists. And of recent, to cap it up, there are veterans who have come together to also try to professionalize the industry. And that is the emergence of Society of Nigerian Broadcasters, anchored by the current chairman of Broadcaster Organization of Nigeria, the likes of Dr. Yemisi Bangboshe, the Wigwe, John Momo, and all these veterans are really trying to shape the industry so that we rid the industry of quacks. because so many people want to portray themselves as journalists.
Do they picked up on that one?
Through the process,
Yeah.
can really be put aside.
Mr. Ismail, I'm so glad you're having that conversation, because let me bring Mr. Ojekunle to this conversation. We're in an ever-changing world, right? Ever-changing world, so much so that the era of television and traditional media is struggling to stay relevant in the world where microphones are so cheap that people are on social media with their podcasts spewing, all type of nonsense. And then you now have streaming platforms that is slowly, phasing us out. Now, I would like for you to talk about, how traditional media can stay relevant and how we can vet out this quacks really very quickly, but not before we go on a short break. I know that can be funny like that, forgive me. You're watching New Central Television. This is Breakfast Extra. Our guests today are veterans and also in, the association, talking to us about the welfare of journalists and those who work in media, but most importantly, celebrating World Television Day. We're going to short break. When we come back, there's more. Stay here. And you're welcome back. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on New Central Television. Our guest today is Tokunbo Ojekunle. He's a veteran broadcaster, and also joining us is...
I see what we're doing there. So Adejumo Ismail is, well, I just said Mr. there again.
I say Mr. And also we have comrade.
Let me set the scene. Oh, no, you were asking a question.
Yeah, I was asking a question. And it was about, how television and traditional media can stay relevant with the emergence and the popularity of streaming platforms and content creation such as broadcast and the rest, and also how we can vet
quacks.
There we go.
Quacks. The quacks. Thank you. It's a loaded question, but I'll try to beat it up quickly.
Yeah.
Let me explain this. If you are not in the television business, you are not there.
Yes.
If you are not in the radio business, you are not there.
How do you mean?
I'll tell you why. Because it starts from the inner mind. It's a soul thing I can't explain. You must be captivated by what you see. Haven't put your head into it and said, this is marvelous. Look at all the beautiful guys that you brought on the clip. Everybody had a passion. They grew with it, right? Now, it's easy for me to identify those who don't have that passion. Hi. You just sit back and watch some programs. I am not berating any station or don't have anybody in mind, but I want people who listen in now and fall into this bracket to ask themselves quickly and say, really, what am I doing here? There are so many things you miss out if you don't have the skill and capacity. That's one. But there must be a passion for it. I would not go online. Even, let me explain this. I'm not very visible online. It's not for anything, but the fact that, look, in my own small cocoon where I am, I can make an impact.
Sure.
So what am I trying to show off about? So a lot of people don't understand that. Now, you mentioned something earlier in your introduction, and it's very key. You mentioned fame and popularity. A lot of people just want that, and it's not making a headway. So what you need to do quickly is to identify where your passion is and how you can get into the souls of the people who watch or listen to you, i.e., cultured issues programs, right? Culture-based programs, good entertainment programs, not low musical content programs. You can stand out on your own. You don't have to be and belong when you are not there. Why would you want to speak like the American? I see a lot of that going on. And you mentioned culture, and it is very important that people know that these days, television has left the studio. It has left the small sitting rooms. It's now everywhere in the world. And what you say matters, and how you say it matters. People who do not understand it do not know that there is a life after the online thing. And the, as you would say, Google never forgets. Sure. It never goes. I have been in rooms where we interview a lot of people who want to go on air and all that. But because I've done my search, when you walk in, I know you're fake, because I've seen a lot of things you've done on that. People do not know. And nobody will tell you that's the reason why you're not being accepted for this job.
Right.
So
you're doing your
they do
homework.
not know.
Very interesting how you've just welded two different generations. From the past one is driven by passion, and then from now one is driven by fame. And you've actually noted that your CV is already out there.
It's there.
It's already out
It's
there,
there.
on the internet,
Nobody
whether you like it or not. You can't
dispute.
fake
Even
it.
when you want to dispute it, it's there, still
It's
there.
very interesting. I'm going to come to Ms. Ismail now.
Okay.
And we're going to address this Mr. and Mrs. bit in a bit. But Ms. Ismail, let's talk about welfare. People who work in radio and television, thank you for the good work that you have been doing. But so often we hear of people who have been working at establishments where they haven't been paid for months.
My pensions, pensions.
Then there are those. Pensions as well. Don't start that. Those, I know where you're going.
That's another topic, right?
Exactly. So now the question is, what is your body doing when it comes to these bits?
Individuals and their
These issues.
Thank you very much. Unionism in the broadcast sector, since the advent and the proliferation of the media space, has become so difficult, most especially the private-owned media organizations. They have not been really, cooperating. The union mandate is to organize. Our mandate is to organize radio, television, and people in the cultural sector. But with specific emphasis, the people in the media, which is the radio and television, are the mirror, the image maker, the people that project the society, that set the agenda. They should be given the rightful place in a scheme of things. Their welfare is to be paramount. Because once they are not well remunerated, they are bound to, this syndrome of brown envelope turning to white envelope, becoming a syndrome that's really affecting, the output, that people will distort facts. And we are not too comfortable about this. We have been pushing into some private sector to let them understand that we have the mandate to organize you. But because the employer-employee relationship is always on individual basis in the private sector. But in the government sector, the public sector where we come from, is collective. Once you are within the organization, you are bound to join either of the two, organizations, either NUJ or Ratao. And they are to push for your welfare and ensure that the welfare and well-being of you being a broadcaster is well taken care of.
I'm saying, you mentioned something regarding the private sector inside of media and how they seem like they are most of that. Now, is it that the members or the people who work in these private companies or these private establishments are not part of the union is the reason why it's difficult to assist them?
Membership is voluntary. It's not compulsory. You take choice because, organizing under a union have a lot of benefits. To protect your rights, fight for your welfare and progression.
There's power
just like
in
you talk about the issue of pension, your career advancement in the organization, how you progress is very, very important. And the union will make sure that these are really, guided. But in the private sector, your MD or your GM can wake up tomorrow and say, okay, so I don't like this face on the screen. Probably maybe you let him or her go. But it doesn't work like that in the public sector because there are conditions of service that are very, very, well structured that you can't just trample upon. So the same thing goes with the issue of remuneration and welfare. So we've seen cases whereby journalists or reporters are not being paid in the private sector. It's not as if we can fight for them, but they are not under our purview.
Why aren't they joining? Why aren't they joining the union?
I'll give you an instance. There was a time before I came on board, we take a move with the AIT. Because they are the biggest, along with the NTA then, when the monopoly was still very strong. So the management of AIT, we've gotten some canvassers, some interested members to come under our union and sign the collective bargaining agreement with the management. They just told us, come, you guys, it's either you sign up with the union and leave, or you retain your job.
Oh, wow.
And, these threats and intimidation, has not really given us the needed penetration. We have also moved close to stations like Arise TV, channels. We spoke with the GM and the MD of Channels Television, who also from the public sector background, that there is need for a member to unionize. It's optional. But once you are given the opportunity, I'll give you an instance. BBC unilaterally wrote Ratau Lagos that they want to organize under Ratau. I will put up the request. I take it to the NEC meeting in Abuja of our national body for them to be unionized. Because in the whole of Africa, it's only Nigeria that doesn't have a bureau that have union. The whole of other African countries, BBC have a unionized body that fight for their members.
Why is there reluctances from the private sector management to not allow their workers to unionize, to join the union?
It is because of, to decide what they'll give them. Some of them are not giving the right remuneration that they deserved. Imagine if a graduate of a mass communication is employed and you are giving maybe in a month, you are paying him or her maybe a patronage 60 or 70,000. In this country, how will he going to survive?
So the private media organizations...
that goes with the job. Temptation that goes with the job when you go out to cover an assignment, to report. Politicians will influence you. People who have to distort news want to influence you. And if you are not well remunerated, you imagine compromise.
I see Tokunbo, you're wincing, and I'm wondering what it is you have in
You know
mind.
why? Because, comrade, you're well spoken, all right? My only problem is this. Public sector should learn to respect the broadcaster. Public sector should learn to respect the broadcaster. It's your turn to be a GM, they bring somebody from the ministry to cap you, and the man who is there doesn't know jack about it. You see, sometimes it keeps the morale. It lowers your esteem. And you wonder how many years you spend there, almost like a flitter, gone with the wind.
Right. So the problem is actually double-edged sword.
Yeah, thank you. It's here and there.
Yeah.
I like the way that Ratau fought for me.
Right.
They're still fighting for me.
Yes.
My big friends, they were there. Israel Ayoglade and Co, they were all there.
Right.
And they're still there today. Yes. My fear is this, that if care is not taken, we will lose everything that stands for broadcasting and its culture in Nigeria.
Speaking of
lose
that, speaking of losing everything that the television stands for, because we're out of time, I have to ask you the cultural impact of television when it comes to our societal issues and problems. Has television, since its inception in Nigeria, achieved any cultural influence so far on culture, society, governance? Go.
Thank you. Thank you. That takes me back to the inception. October 31, 1959, okay? When Chief Obafemi Awolowo brought up the idea of the Nigerian television service, right? Why was the slogan called Gateway to Africa?
Why?
Because one day will come in 2024 or 2023 when a station like your station will also think Africa.
Yes, perspective.
And that's the truth, because it's all about culture. We have seen a lot being garbage in from us from outside the country. So for me, that's a way to start. And when you start with that idea, okay, you are able to inculcate that culture. If you do things reasonably, the old NTA, they were giving us drama skits, beautiful, to tell us about the culture. I remember some signature tunes now in my head. I can't even remember there's so many loaded programs.
Going to be the Masquerade.
Masquerade, thank you.
Really
And gradually those things filtered away, and then we started seeing all this something and sons and
Solutions. Have we? I always ask this question because we're out of time. We have less than a minute.
Wow.
We're out of time. Solutions. Have we lost the plot? Have we lost the recipe? Can we stray back to the charted course to greatness when it comes to media? Very quickly, press with time. 30 seconds.
We should, and we must.
How can we do that?
Governments must support. Content creativity is a different kettle. Create a company for it. And let's move on.
Content is the hallmark in television broadcasting, because it's not about the medium. It's about what you put out there, the output. So, and the culture of Nigeria is so rich, in the extent that it is sellable all over the world. And people are coming here to learn about our culture. So why can't we have a commission that will be in regulating creation of content in Nigeria?
There is one, isn't there?
So creating the content and selling the content, you understand, will also be a major source of revenue to the government and the private owner of television. So in our own struggle as a union organization, we will continue to collaborate with owners of broadcast television, both in public and private, to ensure that this issue of content that depicts the true African perspective, because that is what NTA vision is all about. to be a world-class television and imbibing the African perspective of it, which the New Central is also taking a cue from.
We're doing
we are the mirror, and we should be able to be proud of who we are, an African, and we are the best in the world. So that is our goal, and we'll continue to push it gradually to ensure that we have the best from our sector.
Mr. Adejumo Ismail, thank you very much. Tokunbo Ojekunle, remember we talked about this Mr. and no Mr. thing?
Yes, please.
We had a story for that one, but we can't discuss it now because we're out of time. I want to say thank you very much, gentlemen. Judith, 20 years ago, I walked into the reception of Echo FM, and on the intercom where I did my very first audition for radio,
You're going to share the story about you met
Mr. Ojekunle.
But you have to throw in the 20 years ago.
20 years ago?
You must tell people that you are old.
These are the veterans.
The one here will tell the story.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't know why he always has to throw it there. Like, we already
Thank
see
you
the
so
salt and
much.
pepper on your head.
Thank you for the honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been
Pleasure.
quite the conversation.